It's another Manly Monday, and yes, we are doing an Elon Musk inspired video, but it's not about Elon Musk. Don't worry. I want to talk about that guy as little as possible, because I find him just reprehensible. He's just a disgusting human. Um, and part of it is this, agree to be part of hardcore Twitter 2.0 or you get 3 months severance. Basically, agree to be abused or you're fired. That is the ultimatum he gave to, I think, all of Twitter last week, and it didn't necessarily go so well. And if you saw the photo he posted of the people who did answer the call to be mistreated, guaranteed 60 to 80 hour days. And apparently some people who quit were already working 60-hour days. So they're like, I don't mind working hard, but forget this. I can't work any harder than I'm doing. And that's the issue. But this isn't just my personal opinion. I actually have some data on this. So me, Cthulhu, and Snorlax. We know Snorlax isn't big on hardcore, right? Like Snorlax likes to sleep. And then he gets up and it's this mad burst of activity and then back to sleep, right? Snorlax is good. So we're going to dive into it, but you know what's coming. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it and can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. And I do want to plug the It's Not Therapy bubbles. I should do a little graphic for that. But there is a men's support bubble starting Saturday, November 26th. This Saturday. I know it's American Thanksgiving, so we may hold it over a week. I don't know. One of the things that's on the form is there a better time for you on this? I do think that, a lot of guys have been put through this gauntlet and may need some support unpacking this and other feelings. So obviously this is going to be one we're going to do fairly regularly, but we want to sort of get the core going. Again, this is in beta. It's very experimental, but link in the description box below to the form to check it out. You're going to be hearing a lot about this because I want to make sure people know it's there. But let's get into this hardcore thing, because like I said, I do have some data on it and why this hardcore attitude backfires more often than not. It fails more often than it succeeds. And this brief rundown is on the Twitter feed of a guy named Steve Magnus. Steve's written a book called Do Hard Things: Why We Get Resilience Wrong and the Surprising Science of Real Toughness. So I had to learn this the hard way, that the hardcore strategy does not work. You end up completely worn out. Steve uses the example of the Junction Boys Hell Week. That's a sports ball thing. So a coach named Paul Bear Bryant took over Texas A&M, and put the players through just boot camp from hell, right? Training camp. And the team went from 100 players down to 30. And the popular myth was that only the strong survived and it led the team to success. But that's not what happened that year. What happened that year is the team went 1-9, which is 1 win, 9 losses. Football. Yeah. And what they found is that people who stay during these, hardcore, meaning abusive phases, they don't have any other choice. In the case of these players, they said things like, where would I go? In Twitter's case, it's been speculated that the people who stayed need the employment to maintain their work visa. And then of course, Paul Bear Bryant himself recognized it was the wrong call. He changed his coaching tactics because it wasn't the best people that stayed. Some of the people who quit the Junction Boys, went on to play in the NFL. They switched sports in one conference in baseball. They joined the military, became war heroes. It wasn't weak to quit. It was smart. They had other options. And so what you end up getting is people who are desperate or feel like they're stuck. And, I know I'm beating a dead horse with this, but, that's why I was really surprised at the pushback about dreaming on last Tuesday, but then the comments on Friday were more a bunch of people. Yeah, I stopped dreaming, or I stopped dreaming for a long time. Like life had just beaten the crap out of them. And, they're finding this in business. They're finding this in arts. They're finding this in coaching. I mean, more and more I hear the no assholes policy in entertainment. Man, I wish that came in when I started. Holy shit. But what they found is that the abusive leader changes the lead. So they found that players who had a hardcore coach had more technical fouls and worse performance over the trajectory of their careers. Even when that player had moved on to a different coach. So one bad coach, one abusive coach, traumatizes a player for their entire career. Yeah, scary, isn't it? And what happens is that the hardcore creates the appearance of discipline without actually fostering it, leading by fear and punishment, creating the facade, Steve Magnus says, the facade of respect, buy-in, and discipline, but it's short-lived because the hardcore or hard-ass all-the-time approach runs counter to basic motivational needs, because what it does is erode self-motivation. You're being pushed. You're not pushing yourself, right? It's a completely different paradigm. And so that ability to self-motivate erodes because you're overextended, you're tired, you feel stuck, you feel trapped, you feel like your destiny is not your own. And that is one of the things that actually motivates people. This is the thing that is so mind-blowing because we've known this for a while. But for reasons I'll get into in a bit, various leaders keep losing sight of the fact we know this. We know what motivates people. What motivates people is feeling like you belong, feeling like you can make progress, and feeling like you have some control over your life and the task or the pursuit, some idea of autonomy, right? And so what would that look like, on a team? That's being able to say, I'm exhausted, right? Feeling like you're not just going to be kicked out at any minute. And I know that's a huge thing on the internet, the idea that people could be kicked out at any moment, this fear of ostracization. And that's why, here and on Twitch, I'm very, very clear about what's going to get people booted. And I give people warnings before I take any action, because I want people to feel like they belong. And that's the same reason why I don't tolerate, attacking other commenters or, open, bigoted statements. And it's tough when people don't know what they're saying is bigoted, but I have to be the bad guy and point it out to them so that other people feel like they belong, right? And that's something I learned managing. It's something I learned on teams in game dev. It's something I learned in television, that my job was basically block all the crap from the higher ups and as much as I could foster mutual respect among the crew, because, in the cases of the TV show, um, a big part of the cast was women essentially in their underwear. That's a vulnerable place, right? Underwear, bikinis, that kind of thing. You got to feel pretty comfortable to have a good time doing that, right? And there was some, there was some mean girling, there was some bullying I had to deal with. That was not fun. Yeah, adults do it too. But that's a pretty major thing. And a good leader makes sure people feel like they can speak up. And the real challenge and why that, one abusive coach affects a player forever, that rang true to me, because it's amazing the number of things, even though I set an example of like, look, please tell me when something bothers you, the number of times it's just like, committee spokesperson or someone just doesn't say anything until it's a huge problem, and people are just trained to not mention something when it's small. And I completely get why, because I've been that situation. Oh, you're a troublemaker. Like, no, I'm a trouble reducer. I'm telling you about something when it's a solvable problem, and when the solution is just a communication and an adapting of behavior, not somebody's got to get fired. That's not a troublemaker, but they just want to shut the problem down, right? Hardcore, hard ass, toughen up. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. Even the toughest person. That's what I love about God of War Ragnarok. They're dealing with the fact that Kratos, tough guy, wants better for his son. Doesn't want his son to feel like he has to be the hard ass because his dad was. And, I know my share of tough people. And we all sort of agree that we don't want people to get the message that people have to be like us. We are the way they are so people can plot their own path and be the sweet, gentle, creative people they are. We don't expect everyone to tank. You need support and DPS players as well, right? I wish I didn't have to tank so much. Just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I necessarily like it all the time. Sometimes it's fun. It's fun going after transphobes, I admit. I don't know why. There's a special delight I have in going after those people just because they feel like such bullies to me. Anyway, tangent. So feel like you belong. Feel like you can make some progress. That's really important. People have to feel those milestones. And that's a huge thing in game dev. That any technology thing where things take a long time, right? You have to feel like you're getting achievements along the way. This is true in life. If you're working on something really, really difficult, if it's something like a job search or even dating, it's not therapy, it's on dating this week. And it's something where you are going to get rejection. Things aren't going to work out every time. You can give the best interview and somebody is just a better fit for the job. There's all this stuff you can't control. It's very important to have something that you can go back to that you are making progress on. Some sort of project or some sort of, group or something that even though you're spinning your wheels in one part of your life, another part of your life is moving forward and progressing. It's super, super important for motivation psychologically. If you don't have that, you just get more and more and more discouraged and beaten down, right? And then that sense of control over your life and the task. That's what PTSD taught me, is that people are absolutely not at their best when they don't feel like they have control, and not absolute control. Sane people don't want absolute control, right? But they do need boundaries. They do need the ability to go, I am exhausted. I need to go home today and not get the, oh, you're just lazy. You're just irresponsible. You're just not tough enough. No, you're fucking tired. And I have no idea why employers, and I've worked for these assholes, work somebody 60 hours a week and then dare to call somebody lazy. Nobody who works 60 hours a week is lazy by definition. It's just abuse. And, this idea that you can fix a company a guy overpaid for by making the staff that exists work harder. Industry analysts said the first round of brutal layoffs, when you do that, when it becomes, oh, we're only keeping the best, what ends up happening is the best leave. Because the best go, okay, I'm clearly good at my job and I don't want to work twice as hard because we don't have enough people. So I'm going to start applying elsewhere because I'm actually good at what I do. Fuck this. And that's where we get the whole quiet quitting phenomenon that I don't like. I don't like the term quiet quitting because it's not quitting. It's doing your job. It's setting boundaries that you have a job description and you're expected to put in 40 hours a week. Any more than that should be optional and have some sort of additional compensation, whether it be, extra pay or additional vacation days. This is work. This is not a favor. If somebody's just an employee for the company, it is not a calling. Work means you're paid fairly, you are compensated fairly for the work you do. And suddenly being told you have to work more hours for the same pay, that's exploitative. And people know it. And then people lose motivation for the job. And they may be there nose to the grindstone, but they're not giving you their best. Even if they think they are intrinsically demotivated. And that's the problem with the whole hardcore thing. It's the same. I can play, AAA game, something like Far Cry or God of War. I find it best in like maximum 3-hour chunks just because I'm savoring it. It's so good. But something like, a Dark Souls game or Sekiro or Bloodborne or one of those, a game that is hard by design. There are times I just get tired and frustrated and I have to stop. And it's like those games start feeling too much like work. And I hear Elden Ring's better, but I admit I haven't played Elden Ring yet because I got burned out on the grind. And it's not that I don't like the games. It's not that I don't like to play them when I'm in the mood for them. It's just I have to be in the mood, right? As opposed to it's always time for Kratos. And there's an example of God of War Ragnarok played on balanced difficulty. The normal is called Give Me Balance. Balanced difficulty is no slouch. It's not hard. You can make some mistakes, but it's not button mashy walk in the park. It's a good level of difficulty. And so I feel challenged. I feel like I'm making progress. It's not too easy, but I feel like I'm in control of the game. I understand if I lose a fight, why I lost the fight. Whereas in, from software games, I'm like, why did that not work? I don't understand, which is demotivating, right? And that's why it's more fun to play on something like Twitch because then people can help me. But you see how game theory gamers intrinsically understand motivation. And I think that's why there's such an uproar when something doesn't feel fair. There's an expectation that people do what they say what they're going to do and do what they said they were going to do. Right? Say what you mean and mean what you say. And when that doesn't happen, they get pissed off. And that's why Elon Musk has had something of a miserable time of it, right? He said there was going to be this big free speech platform, but no, it wasn't. He's cut the people who do the basic appeals for suspensions, but letting famous people back on. That's not free speech. That's free speech for the few at the, at the cost of the many. And he keeps going, Vox Populi. He doesn't even understand what he's saying. But back to the sort of hardcore thing, because it's funny. This is science. We know this, and we know that it takes time to develop buy-in and boost what's called intrinsic motivation. Because this is the method I use, right? I don't do hard sells. I come out here, I'm authentic with you guys. I give you time to get to know me. And then if you want to participate in the pay to play stuff, amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate it. But I don't stick. I carrot things. I don't stick things. Though I appreciate you liking my RAR on Friday. But yeah, part of the reason I do things the way I do is because I do want to internally motivate, because people shouldn't feel forced to watch things. Too many things are, I think that's why people got burned out on the MCU, right? You have to watch this show to know what's going on with this show. And you have to watch this whole series for that 5 minutes at the end of one episode that tied into something else. And no, you really don't. No, you really don't. You should watch a show because you enjoy it, not because it's required viewing. And I really think that's part of the reason I was so damn hard on... I mean, I eventually stopped watching Andor because I just couldn't take it anymore. I'm going to go back to it eventually. But, the difference between watching Rings of Power because it felt required and watching Andor because it felt required, and waiting and watching House of the Dragon the way I knew I was going to enjoy it the most. I ended up, no, House of the Dragon, I maintain, is the best of those three shows. But I enjoyed it. I was coming into it in a way that made me feel like I was controlling my experience a little bit, instead of that week to week fucking always on hiatus brain that I just can't take with water cooler shows. I hate the speculation. It burns you out of the enjoyment of the show. And this is not work, but that's the hardcore fan phenomenon, right? The hardcore fan, it's like you cannot have both, because the hardcore fans seem to be so intense about something that they no longer seem to like it. Everything seems to make them angry. They're constantly attacking people over fictional things meant to entertain. And not everything is gold, but am I going to be really mad at Kit Harington because I didn't like the Eternals? No. Right? So I don't understand why people lash out at actors, right? Because they don't like something in it. People were getting mad at Jamie Lee Curtis for posting a freaking photo her husband was in with Johnny Depp and it was like days of a dog pile on 2 different social medias, on Instagram and Twitter. That is unhealthy. That is unhealthy. It is unhealthy to believe that everybody cares or is as aware as you are of something. If somebody doesn't know something, inform them, but do it in a friendly, gentle way. And I'm going to talk more about sleep versus wet rest on Wednesday, because I think that's something everybody needs to hear. But this particular, we talk about male disposability. And I do believe, I've been thinking about this one a lot, because people feel very strongly about the fact that society forces this on men. And yet, guys like Elon Musk do. I mean, the fact that he is going, I'm going to mistreat you, agree to it. That is treating workers like disposable, fungible gears in his grand machine, right? And he's covering that up with the appearance of choice. But as we see with the science, the people who respond to that aren't gonna feel like they have a choice. Because who in their right mind agrees to that? Nobody, right? We know that it's not the people who love it the most. It's not the people who are best at it. It's the people that don't feel like they have other options. And obviously there are exceptions. There are a few Elon Musk super fans out there, right? But that's the exception that proves the rule. The majority of people you're going to get under that system are people that feel forced. And then you get people who feel disposable, feel out of control of their life, who don't feel like they belong, and they stop striving. They stop dreaming. And we see this very much in a lot of men. And I think the dream some people went into crypto. That's where they put all their hopes and dreams, and we saw what happened there. But yeah, this hardcore attitude is the conjoined twin of male disposability. Guys like Elon Musk convince you that this is noble, and it's not. You're not weak for going, forget this, I have other priorities. I don't want to be so exhausted from my job that I have no energy to do other things. Trust me, as somebody who ended up there, I still feel a little bit guilty when I take a day off. Half days off this week, but I feel guilty. But I have to tell myself, you will work more productively long term if you take this break. And the reason my system is just, this feels strange, is because it was 60 to 80 hour weeks most of my life, and I ended up getting sick. And, part of it I know is because I worked in male dominated fields, and not just the fields. I work for fake lefty sexists. The one guy who was a right winger, on paper. But, these so-called allies who are actually really bought in to the disposability, and they'd never admit it, but women always had to prove we were tough enough. We always had to prove we were tougher even than the guys, because there was this weird fake self-destructive toughness all through the industry. And nobody was happy. Everybody was at each other's throats. It was this, it was this colonization model. When you have that model, when somebody comes in and just takes over, it doesn't matter who you are. You start seeing those behaviors associated with lack of autonomy and, denial of self, denial of subjectivity, things like that. And because things have been so desperate for so long, and because the gender binary is, hit men and women in different ways, it's manifested in different ways. And that's why I push back when I see a guy like Elon Musk exploiting this, because I think it's not, I think we make everything this stupid binary when it's not. Men need to hear messages, supportive messages regarding this from both other men and women, and then other people too who don't fit neatly into those two categories, right? Because there's a pull to live up to the standards of other guys, right? Upward social comparisons. But then there's this push from women that I think is fairly poorly understood, because there is no healthy masculinity movement that's sort of centralized and has traction. Now, granted, I wouldn't exactly say that for-profit feminism endorses healthy femininity either, but I do think that we need messages from both, and that's why the men's support panels we're doing, the men's support bubbles we're doing through It's Not Therapy, at least for a while. There's going to be a male facilitator, but then I'm going to be there as well, so that guys can get both. Guys can get the support and reassurance from the type of person they need it, because some guys aren't comfortable opening up just around other guys. Some guys very much need that, and you know what? Both are fine. Both are okay, right? It just is. It's there's no moral judgment on this stuff. Some people just need different things. And that's why I think it's very important to provide the data. You're not slacking because you're like, fuck this. No, I'm done being hardcore, at least for a while. You're going against the science here. You're going against what we know works in terms of long-term effective motivation. And it ain't the hardcore. It isn't. It isn't. And even militaries are stepping away from that right now. The militaries have this, see it in the comment section all the time. Yeah, there's the hardcore elements, but then you've got the camaraderie, the sense of belonging, right? The sense you're making progress, the feel like you have some control. The military, as tough as it is aware of that in a way that the corporate world isn't. There is no way someone constantly monitored on their computer and hired and managed by algorithm feels like they have any sense of progress, any sense of belonging, or any sense of control. We're doing it all wrong. Make of that what you will. I hope you find the information interesting. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Patrons do get a say in some of the stuff that happens on this channel. They got the first look at the It's Not Therapy bubbles. You can buy a one-time Leanna Care session, which is part of the It's Not Therapy thing, for someone who can use but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. And check out the bubbles. There's not just a men's supports group. There's a bunch of other topics. Description box link. Check it out. And thanks for watching. I don't have it ready. Manly Mondays.